So, for anyone that has followed me at all or knows anything about the work I do, you probably know that EFT, emotional freedom techniques, what's often referred to as tapping, is my number one modality. It's what I've used the most extensively for like 20 years. And it's a real frustration that I have when I come across people, especially my colleagues internationally, both US and abroad, who are still stuck in this old paradigm of psychology and do not believe or do not realize or do not look at the research to know that this technique has been greatly developed since it was first created. It was wonderful even when it was created. It's even better now that it's been researched and improved and used clinically for trauma. There are well over 200 well established clinical studies on its use for severe trauma, PTSD, anxiety, depression, addictions, pain, all kinds of different things. And the evidence is very, very clear that it works. The problem is that there are millions of people in the world who learn a little bit of EFT on YouTube, or they take a weekend class, or they do a little workshop, or they learn it on Instagram, or whatever, and they're not clinically trained. They don't have a background in mental health or psychology or anything related. And it's not that it can't be used by anyone, it's an amazing self help technique that everyone should learn. But you have to realize that there is a way to use it that gives the best results. And it's not something that just anybody can pick up and do and clear some kind of serious emotional trauma with. It takes a little more than that. And so what I hear from people, and these are professionals, sometimes is things like, this is something I just heard today. You can't get rid of a trauma in 4 months. Really? 4 months? You can't get rid of a trauma? I've worked with complex PTSD over periods of months and seen profound results. That doesn't mean it's easy. It's actually quite difficult. And it takes a lot of persistence and very specific hand-holding and walking through the process in a very delicate way. But yes, even complex trauma for most people can be very much improved, if not cleared. That aside, the average person who has more manageable traumas or even a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder, there's studies that are well established. Some of the most recent ones were in the past few years. One was by Peter Stapleton, who's a researcher in Australia that works with Bond University. Has a study out in a major psychological professional journal, published study, that shows that EFT used clinically can eliminate something like 90%, for 90% of the people in this study who qualified, met the criteria for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. After 6 sessions of EFT, 90% or more no longer qualified with that diagnosis, meaning that their symptoms were reduced to the level where they no longer met the criteria for PTSD. That's compelling stuff. And this is not fringe, this is not woo-woo stuff, this is not made up, it's not the power of belief or placebo effect or anything like that. This is a legitimate technique that actually works, but it doesn't work for everyone all of the time just because you heard about it and you started tapping on your face. There's actually a process to this, and it has to be done properly. And the most intense traumas, generally speaking, are not things that you can realistically tackle by yourself. That's just the way it works, unfortunately. I used to, back in the day, when I was so excited about this technique, I was one of those people that thought that anyone could use it if they were persistent enough. They could heal themselves of almost anything. I've kind of calmed down about some of that at this point, though I still think it's powerful as a self-help technique for yourself. working with trauma really works best when you're led professionally by someone who's really well trained, and you do it meticulously, and it takes time, and you go deep into things, and you need that person to hold the space with you. You need them to help guide you there. You need them to witness what you're feeling and to reflect back to you what's coming up, and to ask the right questions, and to focus in on the feelings and sensations and details that come into your mind and body as you're going through the process of working through a trauma. And there's a specific way to do that. So the reason I'm saying this is just partly to dispel the myths, the naysayers, the skeptics who think that it doesn't work, because you're hurting people when you say this. You're eliminating this as a viable solution for millions of people that could be getting tremendous relief, and that upsets me. The other thing is that I want people in general to understand that this is something available to you. Even if you're learning it for yourself, you can still get benefits if you take the time to learn how to use it well. And with the aid of a good trained guide, there's incredible limits, incredible heights that you can get to by using this technique to work through your unresolved traumas. And my experience over more than 20 years, almost 30 years of being a clinician, is that the root cause of pretty much all issues in life around relationships, addictions, anxiety, depression, stress, all relates back to unresolved traumatic experiences. Whether those are big or small, big T traumas, small T traumas, everybody's got stuff. It doesn't mean they're all catastrophic traumas, but we all have unresolved emotional stuff. You can view that through the lens of trauma, and there is a way to unlock that unfinished, unprocessed emotional material and release it and move on and free yourself. That's why they call it emotional freedom techniques. It's a great name. It's a very appropriate name for this technique because it really does give you emotional freedom in your life, which is everything. It's what we all want. So I'm never going to stop talking about this because I don't just believe in it, I know it from personal experience. So this is what I have to say today. I hope you'll check it out. And feel free to ask me questions. I'm happy to answer. I always try to respond to every comment. All right, thanks.